Welcome to my 10-day challenge where I draw houseplants. This is the plant that I'll be drawing. In my last video, I introduced this challenge and why I was doing it. Basically, I'm drawing houseplants as well as fruits and vegetables and all the foliage that I can see from my window for 10 days. And the idea is that when I draw things, I tend to see them more clearly and kind of take in more of their details. And so this is helping me enjoy my plants more. So this time I thought I would talk about the reality of having multiple interests. I'm an engineer and writer, so I spend a lot of time writing code and writing blog posts and using the mathematical, verbal side of my brain. And I find that quite taxing. And the thing that seems to help for me is to use the other side of my brain. I believe it's the right side, which is more visual and associated with seeing. So this might seem counterintuitive that when you're tired, doing another project can occasionally be a good idea. Usually that's not the case. Having too many projects is quite stressful, especially when they're half done and taking up part of my brain. But I think there are exceptions to the advice that you should focus down as much as possible, because we know that some activities work better in combination. Like, we would never tell someone, you have to choose between eating and sleeping and picking the one best way to take care of your health, because we know we have to do both of those in order to be healthy. And we would never try to find the one nutrient to focus on, because we know we need all the nutrients in order to be healthy, and also having too much of one nutrient can actually be bad. So I think there are exceptions to the idea that you should only do one thing, or that you have to be one thing. I also have a problem with this idea that, there are people who are artists and there are people who are not. For example, I introduce myself as being an engineer and a writer, but I have a really hard time explaining what I am. Like, I don't feel like any of those things describes me. It so happens that I do those two things, but I also do a whole bunch of other things like art. And so I don't do it professionally, but I don't think there's a clear distinction between people who are artists and are not. I think if you do art, then you're an artist for that time. And so, similarly about engineering and writing, I think those are just descriptions of a behavior, which is that I do those activities. But anyone is an artist while they're doing art, and anyone's a writer while they're writing. And so I do find that having multiple interests makes it difficult for me to explain what I am to people. I feel like the most accurate explanation is for me to say, I'm just somebody who does a bunch of things, and here's a list of things that I have done, and here's a list of things I'm currently doing, and here are some things I want to be doing at some point. And that's not a good answer to the question of, like, what do you do? If someone asked, what do you do, you could say all sorts of things, like, I take walks and I eat breakfast and stuff, but there's kind of an identity that goes with having a certain job or profession, and I think that's fine. I mean, people need that in order to make sense of roles in society and stuff, but that doesn't really need to decide what we choose to do. Like, we don't need to say, I'm an engineer and so I do engineering all the time, or I spend my time the way an engineer would. You can spend your time doing whatever you want. I also think that sometimes the identity part of it goes with whether you're good at something. Like, are you allowed to call yourself a tennis player just because you play tennis? Or do you have to be good at tennis in order to call yourself that? I think you don't have to. I don't think there are any rules. But anyway, here's the drawing I made. And here's what I just drew. And so this is just day 2 of my challenge, and so I'm not sure what the effect is going to be. But if you want to do one, feel free to follow along and do your own drawings. See you next time.